Mitch, I'm ready to play fantasy. I know I turned 2 in a day, but the lace isn't hot in my veins. I can turn 2 in every way, so I turn to YouTube today and smash play. I'm prepared to listen. The X-Flipping whip got me looking way past the pitches. Statistics all that I know, and I know that who is on first, he can say I'm ready to go. I ain't trying to steal second or third, cause I wanna win first. How am I to put all of these numbers to words? I know the terms from A to Z, it's like a gift and a curse. I know the difference between a splitter and a curve, but if I can't put it into points, man, then what's it worth? I need the truth, I need knowledge. Found this podcast with all of it, but what they call it? Turn 2. Turn 2, what it do? Win leagues, catch out. Peace.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Turn 2 podcast. I'm your host, Matt Williams. We're here in the middle of the week, noontime, waiting in the middle of the lockout. So hopefully you're excited to talk baseball. We are wrapping up our divisional breakdowns for overvalued players on by division, and I have a couple of special guests here with me like usual. First of all, joining us right in the nick of time. I added him just as the intro was going live. No introduction really necessary. You'll know him from his the heyday over at CBS. Currently, a very kick-ass part of the Athletic, Mr. Nando di Fino. Nando, welcome to the show. You ready to talk about the American League West?
Yeah, actually, you stuck me in like my least favorite division for fantasy, so thanks for that, man. But yeah,
it's everybody's.
Let's go. Russell, nice to meet you, dude.
You too, Nando. How's it going?
Everything's pretty good.
And the other voice you're hearing, this is Mr. Russell Wither over at Armchair Roto. Very, up and coming, underrated site. Definitely go check it out, Armchair Roto. Is it armchairroto.com, Russell?
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you actually know, why am I talking about you? You're here. Tell the audience about your great site and why they should go to it.
Sure. A few years ago, I just decided to start kind of blogging about fantasy baseball. I love fantasy baseball, everything about fantasy baseball. And so I just built a website, launched it a few years ago, and started getting active on Twitter. And here I am talking to you guys, masquerading as an expert.
There's actually, I should have played the audio clip because I don't have it ready, but there was actually, you two technically know each other. That I don't think Nando is maybe quite as aware. Apparently Russell had emailed into the Athletic before for one of the podcasts, and you read his email on the air, and he essentially, I guess, I don't know if you remember this, Nando. It was from Russell, and it was someone who basically was saying that he didn't used to like Nando back in the CBS days, but now he's a huge fan.
Well, that's true, Russell.
That's basically what you said on the show.
I don't want to be part of this show.
Matt, did you set this up with him at all, or we?
No. Honestly, I wasn't going to bother with it. I don't know. It just occurred to me that it was really funny. Nando was you were laughing it off on the Athletic show as well.
I got that from a lot. I used to get that from a lot of people in the CBS days.
What's funny, you were laughing, but Ian was super pissed about the email. Ian Kahn.
We protect each other.
Yeah, I wrote this email. It was a few years ago, and I thought it was this hilarious email. And man, Ian Kahn got real bent out of shape over it. But you and DVR thought it was hilarious. So anyway, just, in case Ian's listening, big fan of the show. Love you guys.
Thanks, man.
Meant nothing by it.
No, we're just we protect each other.
Well, the email was actually mostly complimentary, but overall it was actually pretty hilarious. I wish I had the audio. I would have played it.
I have it if you want to take a minute.
Well, you know what? We'll do that towards the end of the show here. In the beginning, when everyone's like, "What are they going on about?"
Yeah,
for everyone who's been paying attention to the series we've been doing, we've gone division by division, doing over and undervalued players to try to shine a spotlight. This way you're kind of forced to look a little closer at some players within the division themselves. And the American League West, as Nando said, it's no one's favorite division. The Oakland's going to blow everything up. Seattle, we don't know what, the service time manipulation. Maybe they'll be forced to bring up Julio Rodriguez earlier than necessary with the CBA. Russell here, though, is an Astros fan. Everyone, I'll take a minute so everyone can boo you in the audience. Okay, perfect. And then that leaves also, I'm forgetting one team, the Texas Rangers, who I don't know. No one knows what to make of them. They're a few years away, but they signed some people to like 10-year contracts that are probably not going to be good until they're going to be good until the team is good. And then they're probably going to be bad. So there's a lot of things going on here. So each of us listed one of our undervalued over and undervalued hitters and pitchers. And we're going to jump right into it right now, starting as always with our guests. So Nando, who is your undervalued hitter in fantasy for the American League West?
I picked Adolis Garcia. I know he's been kind of like a favorite of mine for a while, but I still don't think, the guy's got 30-20 potential. I think his batting average can improve. That lineup's going to be good. I just don't think he's getting the respect that he deserves. He's really sound defensively. He's going to play. So I don't know what the problem is for those kind of numbers.
Russell, do you have any disagreement there? Because Adolis Garcia, I guess my main issue is basically it's the argument most people that have an issue with him it's just that second half that was pretty brutal. He, nothing too crazy about it on numbers. The first half he batted .270 with 22 home runs. The second half .211 with 9 home runs. But if you look at it a little closer, the strikeout rate is basically the same. 30.6, 31.8. You don't want that, period. But
he's not a points league darling, but
Yeah, no, no difference between the first and second half as far as the strikeouts go. If anyone wants to point to the second half, he was just as bad strikeout heavy in the first half. The thing that concerns me a little bit is why he was poor in the second half. And the one thing that jumps out is pitchers threw him a lot of fastballs, and he struggled against fastballs pretty much the whole year. And they really, really elevated the usage of four seam. So I don't know if it's something where some people just can't catch up to four seamers. Usually it's the opposite, where you get to the major leagues and breaking balls are taking advantage of you. But we'll see if he can adjust. But that's one worry I would have. But yeah, overall, it would seem for the amount of production and why his splits kind of fell. Like, again, the strikeout thing worried him in the first and second half. So it's not like that should be something that worries you more. Shohei Ohtani had pretty much a worse second half than Adolis Garcia or Adolis Garcia. I don't is that how you say it? Because I'm trying to anytime I say a name wrong, I want to fix it once and never ruin it again.
I'm not the guru, man, but I do know that this one I'm almost 99% sure is Adolis. Like, DVR is the name guru, and he corrects us, and I believe we got corrected to Adolis in one of the shows.
Okay. So what do you think, Russell? Are you on board? Because if it's just a matter of correcting itself on fastballs, Adolis could be a pretty big steal where he's going at ADP.
Yeah, I don't mind the pick. That power speed combo is a tough commodity to find, especially after you get out of those first 100 picks. It's just a combination of that second half fade and also the other outfielders that are going in the range of Adolis Garcia. I kind of pulled the 10 outfielders going within 10 picks of him. And you've got Alex Verdugo, Eddie Rosario, Hunter Renfroe, Adolis Garcia, Kirilloff, and Joey Gallo. And I'm not taking Joey Gallo over him, but I prefer all those other players. So it's not that I dislike the pick. I'm just taking other guys. There's this pack of outfielders I really like at that point.
So, well, I guess it's a complicated answer, because I guess if you believe that he will be fine, you theoretically should be a lot higher on him than the rest of the group of outfielders. So if you are in on the rest of the group of outfielders instead, I would think that you more or less are out on him. Do you think that's a unfair thing to say?
I think that's fair. The second half fade just scares me with him, and those other players don't really have something that jumps out at me that scares me. I think they're safer picks, and I typically just go with the safer pick.
Yeah, overall, I have been. I've drafted 15 teams by now. All draft and hold. I can't do that with Fab. I can set lineups, but I don't need to be doing Fab all season long. So I set that to a minimum. But I don't have any shares yet. And you know what? Maybe I should, because again, I've explained to myself that there is one major flaw. I think if he can't fix himself against fastballs, his career is over faster than it started. But it's not fastballs are something that you can adjust to more. I went to a hitting clinic when I was younger. Bill Robinson, he was the hitting coach of the '86 Mets. He is no longer with us. Rest in peace, Bill Robinson. But he always said, you always have to look fastball, and that's what all hitting coaches tell you. You can. If you're looking fastball, you can catch up to it and you can adjust to a breaking ball. If you're looking for a breaking ball, you cannot adjust to a fastball. So if he couldn't hit breaking balls, that'd concern me more. Fastballs, I can get behind. Russell, again, that was Adolis Garcia, Nando's undervalued hitter for the American League West. Russell, who is your undervalued hitter for the American League West?
Hold on a second. I'm recovering from the reference to the '86 Mets. That was the year that should have been for Houston. But anyway, so my underrated hitter is Jess Mccormick.
The accountant.
So the accountant. That's right. That's right. So when 2021 ended, Houston kind of had this three-headed monster in center field with Jose Siri and Jake Myers and Chas McCormick. Siri's got major strikeout issues, and Myers had labrum surgery. So McCormick is the guy starting the season. He's going to be the starting opening day center fielder. He's pretty good too. In about half a season, he hit 14 home runs with 3 steals with a .257 batting average. Now that came with a very high strikeout rate, 32.5%. So his good batting average was driven mostly by BABIP, which was also a career high. But he has some good peripherals too. In the minors, his strikeout rate was usually in the 12% range. So I kind of expect that to come down next year when he gets regular reps. He had some really good walk rates in meaningful samples in the minors too. He's got a really good hard hit rate, 48.7%. That's better than Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker. His barrel rate, 10.2%. That's just outside top 50 in the league. So he's got some things that are really worth liking. His ADP since January 1 is 389. That's pretty late for me. I think a lot of that is driven by the projection systems, which project him as a part-time player. A lot of them are showing 300-something plate appearances. I think he's good for 450 with a chance to hold the job the whole season. And at that price, it's definitely worth paying for.
Yeah, I don't understand completely. I mean, Roster Resource runs the world as far as preseason and early ADP goes, because as far as those fringe players, because people look for them for the plate appearances. They currently have him in there. It's a starting center fielder, no platoon. The Astros could always upgrade. We don't know if they're going to be Carlos Correa back, or if they're going to bring Trevor Story in, or if they may just roll with their with their rookie Jeremy Pena. His defense is obviously good, but if they don't bring back a solid shortstop, they could always bring in someone. But again, currently it looks like he's playing every day. Nando, I'm sure you're a fan of him. You're into the obscure players, especially last year. I had a lot of shares. I'm not sure if it's because of his aforementioned NFBC avatar, where he does look like a very friendly accountant. But the high BABIP skills are there: sprint speed, hard contact, line drives. He just has a strikeout problem. So, are you a McCormick fan?
I think I am now, man. If you got the Houston guy waxing poetic, and I tend to lean on the people who are fans of the team or know the team deeply enough to go with playing time ideas. So yeah, I think I had kind of thought he'd be like a 400 to 420 at bat. Some other people would mix in, they'd move guys around, but I mean Russell, like if he gets all those at bats, that's like a 2020 potential maybe. I don't know. I don't love his batting average. Usually in the minors, I like to really chase guys who are like a solid 280, 290, 300. He's had a couple 260s. I think like at least one 260. It's dipped too, but I don't know, man. If he can go like 2020, that ADP is incredible for that. I guess the belief is you have to be on board with you and be like, yeah, he's going to be that 600 at bat starting center fielder.
I guess. I mean, what do you think? I mean, Russell, who do you think is the biggest person in his way? Because right now, again, we're using Roster Resource over Fangraphs as an example. They have Michael Brantley batting second. They have him as a platoon player. I don't know about that. I mean, maybe platoon because he's going to be injured and you want to count on someone else. But they have Kyle Tucker. Obviously, he'll be in there every day. And Chas McCormick on the bench. They have Aledmus Diaz, Taylor Jones. They don't have a lot of other options kind of listed here. Jake Myers is currently listed injured. He'll obviously be back. A lot of people like him as a player too. But I mean, Michael Brantley's going to miss time. Jordan's going to be in the DH most of the time. So is that the feeling? Do you think Jake Myers, I guess that would be the main, I think, concern for most players is they think Jake Myers is going to take that other spot. It'll be Brantley, Tucker, and Myers, not Brantley, Tucker, and McCormick.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, Brantley will probably mix in at DH a little bit more often than he did last year, but he's not playing in center. It's going to be McCormick. Maybe Siri gets 1 in 5 starts, 1 in 6 starts. And Jake Myers is a lot better than Jose Siri is. If he can come back and be healthy, then maybe he makes a challenge to McCormick towards the end of the season. By I think it's more likely that Houston, acquires someone at the trade deadline or does something else rather than Myers coming back from labrum surgery and ending up fully healthy. And I'm not saying I think that they'll acquire someone. I'm just saying that's more likely. But when he's fully healthy, I think Myers is a pretty good player.
Well, I mean, I have no problem with McCormick or Myers because, again, I'm a draft champions player for anyone draft and holds. It's like 750 players drafted. So, I mean, at a certain point, the question marks for playing time go out the door, and you're just looking for people that could play. Do you like him, Russell, since this is your guy? Is this someone that you think in standard formats, Fab, that you would feel comfortable drafting? And then what if it looks like he's not going to have the job, you dump him at the end of spring training? Or is this someone you just are comfortable holding on to because you're that confident?
Yeah, in a Fab league, it's different. If this is his ADP in a Fab league, I think his ADP would probably be a little bit higher in a Fab league because people like using those final picks, to take a shot on somebody. And if he sticks, you just hold him all season. So, in a draft and hold, I'm taking him as like my fourth or fifth outfielder, sixth outfielder. But yeah, in a Fab league, one of those final round picks, just stick him on the bench, see how the first couple of weeks go, and then make a decision at that point.
I'm all about the people with the BABIP skills across the board. Because Nando said he's worried about the batting average. If I think that if he has a sprint speed, hard contact, and everything to maybe overcome that, he's an interesting guy to at least take a flyer on. In late in DCs or in Fab, you can just kind of move on quickly. Moving on again, that was Jess McCormick. That was Russell's undervalued hitter for the American League West. Mine is pretty simple. There's not a ton to talk about here. It's your garden variety post hype prospect, Jo Adell. He came up. Everyone in dynasty leagues were just like hoarding him, like he was going to be the next coming, even though he struggled amazingly, just horrifically in the minors with a strikeout rate in AAA. Came up and obviously gave us more of the same. He was a massive fade and should have been. He struggled horribly. Last year he comes up. Actually looks okay. I mean, again, in the AAA and in the majors, his strikeout rate was sitting at 32.6. He came up to the majors, 41.7. Goes back to AAA in 2021, 29.2. Comes up in 140 plate appearances, 22.9, and he actually looked really good. 4 home runs, a couple of stolen bases before he goes down with an injury. I believe was it an abdominal injury he went down to? I can't think of it off the top of my head. I obviously should know that since this is my player, but he'll be back completely healthy for spring training. He looked really good before he got injured, and the Angels have every reason to try to get him in there every single day. And there could be some growing pains here, but power, lots of power, some speed. There's something here that right now he's going very, very late in draft. So yeah, Jo Adell, he's someone that, DCs or whatever, especially late in Fab, perfect guy that you want to grab, to pick your, people going after like the Riley Greens of the world. What he did in the minors, may have a job in the majors. Maybe I have to wait a couple of, maybe wait a month or two. I love him a lot, but we saw Jo Adell improve at the major league level. And we know what his pedigree was. So Nando, any love for Adell? Because I've been out for a long time. And now at the price, I'm like eagerly spending on shares of Jo Adell.
Yeah, he's the perfect kind of guy I like to go after. It's just for what you said. The post-type sleepers are kind of like my bread and butter. It's like, I like history. I like research. I just remember things from a couple of years ago, and just like, it's crazy how the tide just turned on Jo Adell and everyone's kind of fleeing him. So I don't know, man. I don't think he's played in the majors long enough to show that he can't play in the majors and either a quad A or like a busted prospect. He's good. He's got the skill. Like you said, he showed it a bunch of the minors. I think he's going to climb a little bit. I think there's going to be some hype, maybe, whatever late March is going to be when we get started. But I think he's going to be hot in spring training. People are going to remember how good he was, and you'll see like maybe even like a 60 spot climb. But right now, like I have Adell on basically every DC or best ball I've done. And I'm buying a bunch of his baseball cards. So yeah, I'm with you.
Jo Adell. It's funny. People, it's the way people's mindsets. They're so easily. I'm not making fun of anyone. Everyone falls into this trap. They're like manipulated so well with rookie value. Someone will like just sky high, and then if they come up in September and struggle for a week, their value skyrocket. If Bobby Witt Jr. came up and went 0 for 20 with like 15 strikeouts, do you think he'd be going in the 6th to 8th round right now? I don't think so. O'Neal Cruz came up. He's being drafted based on one batted ball event. I mean, he had like a 40% strikeout rate. And he hit one ball, 119 miles an hour, and people are drafting. So yeah, Adele, try to remember. He was brought up early. He adjusted. He had an injury last year. He looked better. Russell, what are your thoughts on Joe Adele?
Yeah, I like him a lot too, and I've got a few shares of him in the Draft Champions Leagues that I've done. He was better than people think last season. I think people are still feeling burned from 2020. But last year his strikeout rate was down to 22.9%, and his contact was, kind of average, a little below average. At pick 230, pick 230-ish, all you're really drafting him for is like 20 home runs and 7 or 8 steals and a 240, 45 average. I mean, the pick pays off if that's all that he does. And he was such a great prospect that he could really outperform that and make it a pick that really pays off well.
Yeah, and that actually happens with a lot of, I think people they feel like they always are trying to like outsmart the room rather than always drafting for needs. But a player like this, I think you hit the nail on the head, Russell, where Joe Adele, he doesn't have to break out. He can just have steady progress throughout the year and completely pay off that value. I mean, what do you think about that and Nando in general? Like, how do you, when you're drafting later, are you just looking for like just incremental profit per pick? Are you trying to swing for a few home runs, hoping one hits there? And we're talking, I guess it's different, obviously, in Fab and DCs. But let's talk DCs for a second, because that's what a lot of earlier people are doing, and then we'll hit on Fab for a second. Where in DCs you cannot, or Draft Champions Draft and Hold, you cannot make any free agent moves. So if you do strike out on a player completely, it's bad, because you don't want to have too many zeros in your lineup, but you also try you want to try to get some profit here. So where do you because where's your general strategy when it comes to taking a shot on like unproven players?
I do that a ton, man, to the point like where I partner with Chris Vaccaro on basically all of our DCs. We do 3 together every year, but I only do like, I don't know. Anyway, he takes the first 30 rounds and I take the last 20. Because I like turning up these guys in the last 20 rounds. Like, I go through the MILB leaderboards and try and find some people who had some home runs. Like, I want to say Adeline Rodriguez, who's like a Tigers prospect, had a ton of home runs last year. He's been in the minors forever, but I mean, still he hits 30 something. Players like that, I just go after. Like, I think that's why I'm like boxed in at those last 20, is because there's just something wrong with me where I can't take that guy who's boring. Like, if he didn't get us enough catchers, I'll grab a couple boring catchers. I don't go for upside with catcher, but everywhere else I'm grabbing, like last year was like Yermin Mercedes and Adolis Garcia's like of the world. I act like we're going to be in a hole with those first 30, and not because anything wrong Chris did. If I did it by myself, I'd act like I was in a hole those first 30. So I'm just looking for straight upside and at bats and production. And for me, it's not like incremental goodness, like 300 at bats, 10 home runs and 7 steals. For me, it's like that dude who will start playing in like May and play every single day and hit, the pace for 40 home runs.
So you won't be taking a shot on Andrelton Simmons this season.
No, unless we're weak, and it's weird because he's super underrated now. You know what I mean? Like, he might actually fall into that.
He may start every day for the Yankees.
He's still got something left in him. Like, he can hit for average. He can steal some bases. He had that weird power season. Like, he fits the mold now. He's not boring anymore. He's an upside play at this point.
Yeah, it's funny how that goes. Russell, same question, just dealing with Fab. Is this something where if you're weak at a position, do you want to just come out of the gate strong, knowing that you don't want to have to go and fill a weakness through Fab? Like, do you want to try to go with more sure things? Like, third base, like, are you taking a shot on like a JD Davis, who, if he starts every day after traded, could be a monster? Or are you going for, like the kind of like the boring safety plays that, you can kind of use them and there's a reasonable expectation that you won't be cutting them?
Yeah, in a Fab league, I like to build a foundation with kind of boring safe players. But once you get into those final rounds and the bench picks, that's where I like taking shots that I wouldn't normally take in like a Draft Champions League. So I'm trying to think of a good example, but a prospect who you don't know in February is going to be up and playing every day in April. In a fab league, I will draft that guy in a reserve round pick and just see if it works out. And if it doesn't, you can just cut him. But for the building blocks, I like to sort of draft more boring than other people and just sort of take what I expect.
I go in between. I like taking the upside shots on people that I think have a good chance to get more at bats than normal out of, like Tyrone Taylor. Like, I don't think Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich are playing every day. So I think that Tyrone Taylor has a pretty good job of giving me some power speed out of the gate, but same kind of idea. You either wait on the mega superstars to come up, the prospects that could play every day and give you a spark, or or the like. As we waste a lot of time talking about non-AL West players on the AL West show, we were, believe it or not, talking about Joe Adell, and now we're going to head into overrated hitters, the overvalued hitters in the American League West for fantasy. Nando, you're going to spring yours. You're going to surprise your player on us. So who is your guy here?
I really thought about this, man. So like, I didn't give you one because you go through the AL West teams, and I wasn't like, I don't like the AL West, and I think it's because of this reason. Like, look, who's on the? I mean, maybe you could say Ohtani on the Angels, right? But I like Walsh. I think he's underrated. I think Marsh is underrated. Adell, we just talked about being underrated. You go to the A's, like, no one is overrating a player on the A's at all. Like, they're just either ignored or just rated. Same thing with the Rangers. I mean, people don't like Garcia. That's fine. But I couldn't really pick a player on that team that people are like, wagging their tongues over that I could be like, no, it's, you're going way too hard on that guy. And the Astros, I actually think, and if you look at, like, I've said this with like the trash can bangs with like Altuve and the story that he went down and told him to stop. And if you look at the bangs versus later at bats and how many times it's been, it adds up, and like, I don't know. I just couldn't find anyone in the Astros who I thought was overrated either. Even Bregman slipped so far in ADP. Every year it's like Bregman's overrated. And this year he's just slipped so far that I might consider taking him in a couple drafts. So I tried, man. I'm sorry. There's no one who I'm looking at who I'm like, you guys are going way too hard on these
Well,
players.
here you go. Let me ask you a question, since no one put his name down. Very popular player, I think, for what he has shown, being drafted rather high, for what he can give you, being drafted rather low. Nando, what do you think of Jared Kalenic this year? Is he a guy you are willing to invest in? Because you can believe in him and still not be willing to purchase him. Like, that's me, basically. Like, the Eric Crosses of the world think he's going to be the next coming. A lot of people thought that before, but again, like we talked with Adell, he struggled really mightily. His value is down, but still being drafted rather high. I think he'll turn out to be a stud, but I still want nothing to do with him this year. Where do you land on a guy like Jared Kalenic?
Hold on, I'm looking up what do we have his ADP at? I'm pulling start of February until now. 126. And for me, that's right where I'd get him. I think he's going to be awesome. I think, some of these guys you just have to pay for. And I do like the ones who've had, weirdly, not a lot of success their first stint in the majors. But I think that was, the learning curve, the experience, coming in, knowing what you have to do in the off season, adjusting, working with hitting coaches on things like you were having trouble with. And I think Kalenic's going to do that. He's had, full off season to get ramped up for this one. And then you just unlock your skill. So sorry, man, I'm not going to fall for that one. I like him.
How about this? Dave McDonald in the chat is throwing one more before we get into our actual picks here. One more to throw Nando's way since he didn't have one. Dave McDonald, Dr. Dave, has thrown out Mike Trout. And we obviously know, I assume there's a couple of reasons. One, the speed has gone down in recent years. Last year, phenomenal when on the field like always. But, man, it's starting that sad narrative where maybe he can't stay on the field. It's sad. I hope that's not the case. That would be terrible for baseball. But how about that? One more here, and I'll get Russell's thoughts on him too, because he's so interesting. I am not drafting Mike Trout. It has nothing to do with me disliking Mike Trout. I want speed early, or I want an ace early. I'm not sure if the speed will be there, healthy or not. He's going late enough where it may not matter, but there's just so many other players in the first round and a half that I love that I see no reason to take unnecessary risk. And unfortunately for me, that's where Trout falls. Do you disagree with that, Nando?
Yeah, I was doing the Joe Sheehan newsletter Best Ball, and I got Trout and Acuna on the turn at 12. It was a Best Ball 10. I got Trout, and I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen?
That's
a nightmare.
I'm all over him. I love it. I'm weighing on Trout, man. I'm sorry, I cannot say he's overrated.
I guess not overrated. Let's change it to overvalued, because saying overrated with Trout is blasphemy. So we will make sure we say over.
No, I think if you can get Mike Trout at 11, you're getting a steal. You're getting a possible number one overall player at 11.
I guess, I understand the reason to do it. I can't argue with the reason.
Possible number 3. Possible number 3 overall.
I'm not.
at 11.
Yeah, I can't do it. I don't know. I just can't. I am very risk averse though. And I really, really want speed. I would take Bo Bichette. This isn't this is not points. This is a Roto 5x5. I would take Bo Bichette over Juan Soto. I'm not saying I think one's better than the other. I just want a shortstop with speed rather than an outfielder with not as much speed. So it's more about opportunity cost too. This is why I like Jose Ramirez at number 2 overall. Do I think he's better than Fernando Tatis? No, but I've seen Fernando Tatis get hurt swinging a baseball bat twice. If he's going to be the number 1 overall player and he's healthy and he's hit by a good margin, I guess I'm just willing to take my medicine with that. And it's the same with Trout. I'm rooting to be wrong with Mike Trout. What do you think, Russell? Are you willing to take that gamble or not? I guess it's just a matter of how risk averse you are.
I'm not willing to take that gamble. I am very risk averse as well. I've also passed over Tatis on a whole bunch of draft champions leagues. With Trout, I am just totally giving in to my recency bias. I've just handed myself over to it. Last season was so painful. I had him on so many teams, and it was just so painful to deal with all season. He's going to come back. He just tweeted something saying he's traveling, and then he doesn't come back, and then it was just a total lost season. So when I think of Trout, he's so good that he would only need to play in like 135, 140 games to be a first round talent. But that's still a gamble. You look at the games he's played in and his plate appearances over the last few years. I'm just passing over him for someone more safe in that first round.
I am usually incredibly risk averse. I try to be safe and balanced, fill my infield pretty early. Last year, though, we have a league called the Battle of the Podcast, which is just a ton of people who host podcasts. And a lot of great people are in there. And I just put in the chat, I don't want to win. I want to annihilate you all. So I took Mike Trout and Adalberto Mondesi as my 1-2. I'm like, if they're healthy, this is over. I don't even need any other hitters. I did not win that league. So I did take a swing last year. It didn't work out for me. It was fun to root for. I actually didn't do too bad, but yeah, I just can't go there anymore. But anyway, we're talking about a couple of under or possibly overvalued hitters in Mike Trout and Jared Kelenic. And we voiced the pros and cons for those. Russell, who is your overvalued hitter for the American League West?
Okay, this one is a really good illustration of what we've been talking about. So I went with Jeremy Pena, shortstop for Houston, and I put his name on here in the draft champions context. But I'll circle back in a second and point out that I probably would take him as one of those end-game shots in a fab league while you're waiting to see how things pan out. But in a draft and hold, this is one of those opportunities to just kind of dump on taking prospects in that format. I'm an Astros fan. I'm really excited about him. But his ADP, 442 since January 1, there's so many things that have to go right for that to be a good pick. First, the Astros have to not re-sign Carlos Correa. And then they have to not sign a lesser star like a Trevor Story. And then they have to not sign a fill-in guy for half the season like an Andrelton Simmons. I think all 3 of those things are very likely. And so even if those things don't happen and he starts the season with Houston, how confident are we that he is going to perform in a way that returns value on that pick? So if you look at some of the projections, like ATC has 337 plate appearances with 12 home runs and 7 steals. The Bat X is less bullish, but 9 home runs and 6 steals. You look at his AAA numbers from last year, and it's kind of weird. He's got 10 home runs in 30 games, which is great, but that was with a 37% home run fly ball rate, which is like triple what you can expect for reasonable output in the majors. 26% strikeout rate in AAA. The projections expect that to improve in the majors. I don't. So, in a draft champions, those picks in the 400s are so valuable. And if you look at who else is going in that range, if you're looking for like a 3rd or 4th shortstop, you've got Didi Gregorius, whose playing time I think is a little bit safer than a lot of other people think it is. Ramon Urias should be a regular player in Baltimore. in the 500s. You've got Nick Ahmed, Ellis Andrews, Alcides Escobar, Kevin Newman. I mean, I'm taking all those guys as a third shortstop in the draft champions before I take Pena. So, maybe I would take a shot on him in the 600s, 700s, but he's not going there. He's going way earlier because people are shooting for the moon, thinking that he's going to be the starting shortstop. Maybe he is, and that he's going to produce really, really well. Maybe he will. That's not a gamble I'm taking.
All right, and that's Jeremy Pena. That's Russell's overvalued player for the American League West. I understand from a DC standpoint. I don't have any shares there either, and I understand at a certain point you want to grab someone who's going to have at bats. And if they bring back Correa, they bring back Story, they bring back other options. Even though Pena's defense is ready to go, he may not play, and it could be a sunken cost for the entire year. That being said, 400. If you need a shortstop, I can see it. And there's also Bryson Stott who's there, who I actually think has a better chance of starting the year as a starter than Pena. I guess we disagree on that. But there are plenty. So if you need a shortstop and you struck out the whole way and you need a spark, I can see trying to take a shot and you may get a 0. The problem for me is if you don't need a shortstop, there's no point because there are plenty of other players at other positions. I mean, Carlos Estevez, if you struck out, look how much saves are being pushed up. Estevez isn't great, but I mean, as far as I can tell with all beat writers, he's probably going to be the closer in Colorado. There's guys like Jock Peterson if you need some power. Then Michael Pineda is a very decent option for a late starting pitcher. So there's a lot of other very solid picks there. So I am likely never going to be drafting Pena because I never find myself desperate at shortstop. And there's a lot of other pieces I'd rather have. But what do you think, Nando? I guess this is definitely a player where format matters as far as points. Roto, drafting, hold, fab, where you're going to take a shot on him. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Jeremy Pena?
So my thing was when I saw his name in the email, I was like, oh, that's weird because I haven't heard like a ton of buzz about him yet. But then again, Matt, it speaks to my issue of finding an overrated player here. I mean, we had to go to Pena. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, I think if you asked 100 people who are drafting right now, is there some buzz on this guy? I don't think a lot of, but all that being said, get past that. And yeah, I'm 100% with Russell on this one. It's not the Houston thing again. It's just, I don't know. Like, I mean, he seems to me just kind of plain if he tops out at whatever he's going to top out at, and maybe even could hurt you in a couple categories. So yeah, not really a fan. Like I have other shorts. Andrelton Simmons might be a better option at this point, Yeah,
that's Jeremy Pena, Russell's overvalued hitter. Mine, I don't want any hate on this because I actually like this player. I picked Mitch Haniger. And there's a couple of reasons why I am not like incredibly satisfied with picking this. Maybe this is Nando saying it's hard to pick an overvalued hitter. It's just that I think I'm not really speaking to his injury history because I think you're only injury prone until you're not. He played a whole season. He looked great. He hit 40 home runs. The problem is, projection wise, he's projected to hit like 248. 248 with 32 home runs. Let's just go on that. That is the bad X. That's pretty solid in terms of projection system. Adam Duvall projected for 234, 33 home runs. Hunter Renfroe, 245 with 33 home runs. Unless you think Haniger is going to keep up this 40 home run level with a higher batting average, which I don't, I think there'll be regression there. His skill set's rather easy to replace. He's not out there stealing a ton of bags. Like Duvall and Haniger or in Renfroe, you'll be lucky to get 1 or 2. So I guess I should say, this could be a why not both situation where you believe in Haniger's ability to do it more, but the skill set itself is so easily replaceable that taking him around where he's going now, around the 100, 110 mark, rather than waiting for those other 2 players who are going at like 160, 230, I see no reason to pull him there because usually at that point you still have some speed available at other positions, especially in the outfield where I feel like taking a power, no speed guy isn't necessarily a right decision. So again, this is more of an opportunity cost play for me. I like Mitch Haniger. It just seems like for what you get out of him, there's very likely not going to be like a giant, profit potential there with him. So what do you think, Nando? He's a solid player, but not overall. I can't get too excited.
I always had, and I got to go back and look. I always had Haniger in my head at least more as like a 265, 270 batting average guy. I think we should have expected a little bit of rust coming off last year, and the dude hit basically 40 home runs. So I think like maybe another off season again, get back in that groove. And I don't know, man. Like my word association game in my head is Mitch Haniger, 272 batting average.
Well,
So I
for the
think
record, before his injuries, like 2017, 2018, he batted 282 and 285. Going into the 2020 season, into 2021, his launch angle went from like 10, 11 up to like 17, 15. So it looks like he's sacrificing some batting average for power, which is why I think we saw that surge. So you are not wrong. I just think that I'm kind of with the projection system here where I feel like he kind of changed the kind of hitter he was. Last year he batted 253. I think that's fair of what to expect from him. He definitely has more in the tank, like you said. We've seen that from him in the past. But if he does do that, I think he sacrifices power, which I think at this point I'd rather have the power.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what batting average is going to look like anymore with the ball constantly changing, and I don't know what size of season is this going to be. Are players going to remember before 2020? Like it was start stop with spring training. Like, what are they doing now? Who's going to be conditioned and all that, and blah blah blah. Are the pitchers going to be ahead of the hitters when we finally show up in June or whatever to play games? So I don't know, man. Like I think a 273 hitter who can hit 30 home runs for me that seems about a 120 ADP. I'm okay with that.
What do you think, Russell? What are your expectations for Mitch Haniger? And are you interested in him at cost this season?
Yeah, I'm with Nando on this one. I like Machanigar. I think he's far more reliable than other people seem to think he is. Aside from the ruptured testicle season, which is an injury I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, he's been a really, really solid building block. I mean, 157 games last year, 157 games in 18, pretty much a full season in the short season. I mean, that career batting average, Nando's right. I mean, he hit 282, 285 a couple of years, career batting average 263. So he owns those skills, even if he hasn't displayed them the last couple of years. It wouldn't take much of an adjustment to kind of get back there. I mean, he did miss an entire season after all. So around pick 110, it kind of depends on how the rest of your draft is going. Like you said, Matt, it's context dependent. But a pick right there at 110, Mitch Haniger, I think he's absolutely worth that cost if it fits.
But you're expecting the batting average to come up and the power to stick?
Well, I do expect the power to stick. I expect him to hit more than 30 home runs, 30 to 35 home runs. And, I expect the batting average to be kind of in the 250 range.
Yeah, I mean, last year he batted 250 with 30. If he's a 250 hitter with 30 home runs, I should say this. This is a hypocrite answer too. I have shares of Mitch Haniger. Like I said in the beginning, I like Mitch Haniger. So it is context dependent, and I really believe in what he did. It's more of again, when I said opportunity cost, it seems like such an important thing. I love Hunter Renfroe. Right before the season went dead, the blackout happened, the lockout. Hunter Renfroe gets traded to the Brewers, which I love. So it's just, this is more of I don't want the hate mail from the Haniger fans. There's a lot of very passionate Seattle Mariners fans too. This is more about getting a guy where you don't know where the batting average is going to be and the power is going to be there. And there are a lot of those guys late. So maybe we're in the West. I was forced to pick someone. Nando probably wisely.
I told you, man. Come on.
You didn't pull a bullseye on anybody.
Bother. That was the hardest one. I spent the most time on that question, actually.
Yeah.
So
I came up with this and I thought it was just a nice topic of batting average home run guys without speed. So, which I should say, a couple of years ago, Machanigar did steal 8 bases. If he bats like 265 with 30 home runs and 8 stolen bases, that becomes a ridiculous nice value. But that's all of our overvalued quote unquote players for the AL West. Now we're getting into the undervalued pitchers. And this is a good one because Nando's pick is actually undervalued pick is actually Russell's overvalued pitcher. So we should have a nice conversation here. So Nando, who is your undervalued pitcher for the American League West?
I was Noah Syndergaard. I couldn't believe his ADP is still in the 200s. And I mean, dude, at Tommy John, you look. So what I like to do with the Tommy John guys is the year before, I just kind of like just wipe it off the map because you just assume that they were pitching hurt. And it was just progressively getting worse before the ligament snapped. So if you look at what Syndergaard did the 3 years before that, man, he was I mean, you could even his FIP was even lower than his ERA. But his ERA was low. His WHIP was elite low. His strikeouts were 9.5 to 10.5 in that range per nine. So I look at a player like that and I just see one bad year that sticks out. And like, why was that year bad? Like he was pitching hurt. So to me, Syndergaard, who's far enough away from Tommy John now where he's kind of normal again, those 18 months have passed. I think he's just going to go lights out for the Angels. I like the Angels, man, with that rotation. You got Ohtani and Syndergaard. It's going to be pretty awesome. So I just think, at 200, it seems to me like what he's done in his career before the injury should at least merit like a 130 at least. So that's why I think he's undervalued.
I can't be completely down the middle with this one. I find it hard because he's former fan favorite Met who left. So I'm both happy.
They might not want him though. I mean, hey, let's not blame it all on Syndergaard.
No, can't. No. Kemp, I'm not blaming it. I have good memories of Syndergaard. He
might have been kicked out, Matt.
Yeah,
unwanted.
The issue here for me is he was on his way back, and then he had a major setback. And then the only reason he did come back is they said he was allowed to come back, and he was not allowed to throw his slider, which apparently is still on the table that he's not allowed to do it. That is and we're in the lockout. We are not getting updates. Who knows? As soon as the lockout ends, everyone's like, "Oh, there's going to be a flurry of trades. There's going to be a flurry of injury news." And it's probably going to be more damning than any trades or acquisitions that are made. So without updates right now, he's kind of on my kind of purgatory list where we don't know how many innings he could possibly do. The Angels are going to probably do this weird 6-man thing. I don't know if he's allowed to throw his slider. There's just a lot of question marks there for me. So Russell, you obviously pegged him as your overvalued pitcher. So you have a stronger stance on this than I do as far as anti. Me is more about question marks. And when I don't understand something, I tend to erase it from my draft board. So Russell, what are your thoughts here? Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah, again, I don't want to dump on Noah Syndergaard. I love the guy.
You do. You put him on your list. You do want to dump on Noah Syndergaard.
He's a total badass. I love him. I love his hair. His long flowing Fabio hair. How's that for a cultural reference? It's just risk aversion. Guys coming off TJ, Nando's right. It's been a long time, but I just like to see them shake the rust off first before I totally buy back in. So, guys like Verlander, Syndergaard, Clevenger, I'm just kind of risk averse with those guys. I do my own projections. And for players like that, I kind of put them down for like 110 innings, 120 innings. So I don't even put them down for a whole season. And they're being drafted as though they are locked and loaded, ready to go, full season, full workload. And I'm just not willing to pay that price just yet, at least in a draft Champions League, which are happening now. Later on in a Fab League, when pick 230 or whatever is my 5th or 6th starter, that's a really good pick. I would do that in a heartbeat. And if it doesn't work, you cut them and you replace them with somebody else. So that's kind of how I feel about Syndergaard. I don't think he is overrated. I just think he's being overdrafted a little bit with his draft slot. If you look, his min and max picks are like almost 200 picks apart. The min pick of 162, no way. But max pick 324, I'd do that.
Yeah, whatever. Best of luck to Syndergaard. I don't see it happening. I think it's a bad spot for him to land. They are going to. I don't know how many games started he's going to get. Hopefully, it keeps him fresh. The only thing is he's kind of fighting to regain his value as well. So, I don't know. It's one thing I know from a Mets fan is this guy is a beast in terms of gamer. He really turns it on. And as someone who's coming back from Tommy John, again, he's been far enough away that, like we've already discussed several times, Noah Syndergaard, that he may not be at a risk of anything, but he really loves to overdo it. And I expect him in the very beginning of the year to kind of overthrow. And he's being not to, I beat a dead horse. He's being not told not to throw his off speed stuff. It's just it's just too many question marks for me. It's almost like I don't have enough information to give a educated guess on here. No one does. We don't know how he's going to react. This from Nando, I think being your undervalued pick, you already said this is more of a cost thing because we know another pick of yours coming up where you're kind of arguing the exact opposite because it has to having to do with basically cost. So we'll get to that very shortly. But that's Noah Syndergaard as Nando's undervalued pitcher. What is your pick for undervalued pitcher, Russell, in the American League West?
I went with Marco Gonzalez for Seattle. His ADP is 321 since January 1. Min pick 260, max pick 424. I'm not saying Marco Gonzalez is anything he's not, but I just sort of felt like giving the guy some love. I have a few shares. He's boring, not spectacular, reliable. For 4 seasons since 2018, he's had an ERA under 4. He's had totally respectable whips in those seasons. He had 1.31 in 2019, which isn't great, but doesn't hurt you. But in the other seasons, it's been lower than that, and was elite in the short season, was below 1 for that short sample. He's kind of one of these guys that outpitches his peripherals, and the projections all say that he's going to end up above 4. Even if he does that at pick 300 plus, if he has a 4.25 ERA and a 1.25 WHIP over 175 innings, I'll take that all day as a 5th starter, 4th, 5th, 6th starter. So, give me the shares. I like the innings.
I mean, I like the pick. That late, and especially in draft champions, you get a ton of innings. Another guy I like in that area who struggled last year was Zach Pleisak. He is someone where he's going to give you that low whip too. He didn't have the great ERA, but again, he like teammate just Shane Bieber. He has a terrible fastball, but his off speed stuff really plays. If he makes a nice tweak, I think he can get it under 4 again with a nice whip, give you some innings, and that Marco's going to give you the innings. So it's an interesting little spot to grab pitchers, especially in draft and holds. What do you think, Nando? We're talking about Marco Gonzalez.
I'm not a fan. I mean, but that's my problem. Like, I don't disagree with anything Russell said. I just don't like how he doesn't strike people out, and that's like a pitcher I always stay away from. I'm such a sucker for strikeout upside. I will take like a 9.5 K per 9 over a good ERA and whip and a lot of innings every day, and that's usually my downfall. But the years when I win or I finish 13th. You know what I mean? Like, there's no 5th place finishes for me, and I think it's because of that mindset. But I could never get into Marco Gonzalez because he didn't do the strikeouts. That's just, for me to get someone like that, he'd have to have like a 2.69 ERA and like a 1.01 whip, and he doesn't do that. And I don't know.
I will say that he's usually going significantly earlier than this, so I would agree with you most of the time. This year he happens to be at a discount. I mean, people are looking at that, field independent pitching and the writing's on the wall where this could be a blow up. But overall, I do agree with Russell where he tends to beat his projections, at least, or his peripheral stats. But I also agree with you, Nando. They're like kind of boring players where that's kind of the reason I don't like going after Marcus Stroman early. He's obviously a much better version of what we're talking about. We're just talking about, and obviously with his new split finger, he's increasing his strikeout numbers, but he is a ground baller at heart. I don't mind taking these groups. I mentioned Pleisak too. It's more, I like to anchor my team with elite relievers too, not closers, relievers, and the guys that I know will give me the strikeouts. Basically anyone in the Yankees bullpen, for example, gives you nice ratios of strikeouts to maybe even out these guys. So it is build dependent, but I don't mind it. It's definitely no one to get excited about though. No one's ever drafted Marco Gonzalez. It's like, yes, the draft is mine. I've done it. So yeah, that's Russell. That's Marco Gonzalez anymore. We're not going to talk about Marco Gonzalez anymore before we all go to sleep. My undervalued pitcher for the American League West is Chris Bassett, which is basically just like a much, much, much better version of Marco Gonzalez in terms of a pitcher who always outperforms the peripherals, except he happens to have strikeout upside. He showed it last year before taking a liner to the face. So I expect right now, I don't know if is his ADP actually being dragged down because people think that he being hit in the face is going to somehow hold him back. He's going to be fine. He's going to be healthy. He's going to be back. He's probably going to be on a different team than the A's. But overall, the last 4 years, ERA 3.02, 3.81, 2.29, 3.15, and he's kind of increased his strikeout totals as he's gone along. So nothing crazy here, but just someone that's just being drafted a bit too late, someone I'm very happy to add on all teams. What do you think, Nando, of Chris Bassett?
He's another guy, just kind of neither here nor there for me. When I don't know what it is, man. Like I just these guys who are kind of unexciting, and I guess Bassett's unexciting. I like no matter where, like his ADP could be like 520, and I would be in the end, and I'd be like, no, just let me go for this other guy.
If you get light off fireworks with your draft pick, you want nothing to do with it.
That's it, man. And it's I mean, and this is partly why I partner with someone like Vaccaro to do the first 30 rounds, is because I would do the same thing in the first 30 rounds. Like, why did you reach 30 picks for Michael Kopech instead of this, normal guy who doesn't have the threat of middle relieving, who just doesn't get a lot of that's like, that's how I live my life.
You know what?
Yeah,
This is why
very good and serviceable.
This is why Bassett is undervalued, because a lot of people think what you think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's actually why I like to scoop him up. What do you think, Russell? I mean, you like Marco Gonzalez, so I am assuming that you are on the Chris Bassett fan club here.
I am a bona fide card-carrying member of the Bassett Hounds. I love Chris Bassett. I think he's massively underrated. If you go back and look at when he came back from TJ in 2018, he's been really good every season. A very reliable ratios guy. Not a huge strikeout guy, but not bad either. Kind of a compiler. And last season before he got hurt, he was striking out more than a batter an inning, I believe. I don't have his page pulled up right now, but I think he was.
Yeah,
so he was sort of
strikeout rate was at 9.1 K per nine.
Yeah, at pick 130, I'm perfectly comfortable with him as my number 2 starter, and I've done that on a couple of teams.
I would be wary of him being my number 2. I think I love him as a number 3. But the beauty part is I can easily get him as my number 3 most of the time. Yeah, Chris Bassett, again, he's not your most exciting player, but he's in my opinion, and very underrated. So that is all the undervalued pitchers. Now for a little bit of bad news. Nando, who is your overvalued pitcher for the American League West? Which is what I was alluding to earlier. The anti-Syndergaard here, where I think it's the same deal, just price.
It's for me, it's Verlander, and I can point to 2014, like why I don't like him, but like that's poppycock. I just think it's coming off that injury at that age, and this is gonna sound wild, but like married to Kate Upton, you know what I mean? I just think does he really need to push himself and kill himself? He's got all this 2-year contract with a ton of money. I don't know, man. I'm in no way am I questioning the guy's character or his grit or whatever. Like I saw last year when people were saying, why aren't you coming to the games and supporting the guys? And he's like, I got to rehab 24/7. I can't take the trainers from the actual people who are playing. And, I just got to do my thing. I don't know. I'm 43. He's 39. I can't imagine coming back from Tommy John, just pitch another 2 years and kill myself just to get back and stuff. I just don't know if, he's pushing on the gas pedal super duper hard. And for me, that little bit of doubt makes him not a top 100-ish pick. And I think he's sitting right at 110. So it's just an overvalued thing. I hope I'm wrong. I want to believe in Justin Verlander, but I don't know, man. You just maybe listen to Ian Khan too much and all these human elements come into it, but there's nothing statistically. It's just me being, a person and knowing how people work. I don't know. Maybe he'll start out strong and fade. And I don't know if we're giving him enough time after the Tommy John. I know it's been about 1.5 years, so it seems pretty safe, but I just worry. That's all. I worry.
You had me at Kate Upton.
Yeah. Well,
No, I mean, it's funny. Everyone will discuss the Tommy John and they don't even mention before that, he had so many other problems in the 2020 season. The reason I can't even remember off the top of my head, the thing that was holding him back in 2020 had nothing to do with his arm or his shoulder. Did he have some kind of an ab or something? He had something else.
Thoracic outlet? Was he borderline thoracic outlet?
No, he had before that, he had some kind of an ab or oblique problem.
He had some kind of weird core surgery.
Yeah. So he's been off the field for a long, I mean, forget the Tommy John. He was off the field. He's been off the field for well over basically 2 years for the most part. I mean, he's had gaps of being on there a little bit, but yeah, I mean, on top of everything Nando said, I agree with everything you said, but he's just, there's a lot more rust than people think as well, even, at his age. So yeah.
Now go talk to the Astros fan and see what he says.
Yeah.
Russell. We didn't meet. Sorry, Russell.
I'll keep this short. I'd rather have Chris Bassett or Mitch Haniger.
All right.
All right, we'll go with that. All right, that's Nando's overvalued pitcher. Justin Verlander, Russell, who is, we already know your overvalued pitcher. It was Noah Syndergaard, so we're going to save a little bit of time here. I'll start out with you. All right, I said Mitch Haniger. Now the hate mail is going to go to another level because I'm about to say something that's going to make a lot of people mad, and I hope that you listen to my actual reasons before you start shooting arrows. My overvalued pitcher is Shohei Ohtani, and this is only for leagues where he is one player. I'm not discounting his pitching ability. If he is a hitter and a pitcher and you are picking him thinking that you are getting a hitter and pitcher, that is overvaluing Shohei Ohtani. If you are in a league where he is one guy, you are using him as a hitter. He's a utility only hitter. In like best ball last year, you probably used him 4 weeks as a pitcher. If you're in DCs, he's never pitching. He is a hitter every week. He's not a pitcher. So if you are using, again, this is a side thing. I know a lot of people, he gives you, plenty of home runs and stolen bases that kind of give you the value of taking him, but he is utility only, which you have to consider. But if you, for any reason, are using his pitching ability in standalone leagues where he is one player, wipe it off your board. Completely overvalued. There is no reason to ever use Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher. He should be a hitter 100% of the time. So this is a different kind of pick. I'm not poo-pooing Shohei Ohtani. He's amazing. I was basically like praising his graces and begging for the MVP since April of last year. But, there is a lot of injury concerns there too, where if he does get injured, he could still continue to hit and not pitch anymore. So, if you're putting any value into Ohtani's pitching, I think that you are doing yourself a disservice. If you're drafting him, do so knowing you're drafting a hitter. So, I mean, Nando, what are your thoughts on that? Because, again, love Ohtani, everybody. Quit it with the hate mail. It's just a very specific thing here. Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, doesn't exist unless he's Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, as a standalone person.
I can get behind that, actually. I love Ohtani, and I do, like, there's an argument to be made that, like, would you rather have those, 160 innings of Ohtani where he's going to strike 210 people out and, have these elite ratios? But at what price, at what cost? I don't know, man. Like, I think like the magic of having Ohtani on your team just feels so good that you kind of overlook some of the stuff that you mentioned. So yeah, I could, like, if you're just going to take a straight, like, logical path to thinking Shohei Ohtani is overvalued, that's it. I do think maybe, I mean, he seems to have a lot of influence now. Like, he pulled that whole, I'm not doing the day off before and after anymore. I'm going to play every day. I'm going to hit on the days when I'm pitching. Maybe he's going to be able to pull, like, listen, man, I want to pitch a little more often. Let me in. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And then,
he could. Hey, I mean,
backfires.
if he had the ability to have 2-star weeks, that would change things dramatically.
Exactly.
But if he's pitching once a week, like I said, the math is just, he's a hitter. He's always going to be a hitter for you. But yeah, like you said, that things can change, but as they currently stand, there's no way. And
I don't think they're going to change. There's not a good chance they're going to change. I don't think. Yeah.
So, I mean, right now it's not even worth, in my opinion, considering. What do you think, Russell? Or what do you think also in just drafting Ohtani in general as a UT only guy? Because, he is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I love him in daily leagues where you can figure out what you're going to do on a daily basis. But in a weekly league where you have to make a decision, it's just too much to deal with. I had him on a DC last year.
Hold on. Real quick, I want you to continue what you're saying, but we were talking about weekly leagues, everyone. Does anyone disagree that in a daily league, he's the number one overall pick? Right. I mean, right. He's the number one overal pick, right? Okay.
You can do two, especially when you can flip him back and forth, right?
Yeah. If you can flip him back and forth,
100%.
he's number one by a million. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah. I had him on a DC on a draft champions team last year where I was really light on pitching and I had to start him as a pitcher every week. And it just sucked because he was mashing on the offensive side every week. And I could not play him there because I didn't need those stats. I needed the pitching. It was just irritating.
Nando, just because you said the magic of drafting Ohtani, is he someone you really love having on your team? Because we saw what he did even with the second half slump he had. UT only is such a rough way to start a draft where roster construction wise, it's so tricky to have to chase down the rest of those needs, where I just don't like doing it. But you can't argue where if he turns into the same exact guy he was, it's a pretty massive advantage if you can navigate the rest of the draft appropriately.
Yeah, and my problem also again is in auctions, I do a kind of miniature stars and scrubs, but I never get those top guys. So I might pull back if it's time to pay up for Ohtani, which I've never had Trout on a team. Like it's just these guys who are the studs of studs. And I stop at like 44, and they go up to 51, and I'm just like, don't do it. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of magic associated with that, at least for me.
All right, and that was overvalued pitchers. Going into our basically our last round here is our favorite late round targets in the American League West. This can be from anywhere, just the guys that we find ourselves taking because we just think that there's something special there as far as value. So Nando, who's your favorite late round target right now coming out of the American League West?
Spencer Howard, man. I think I don't even know where he's like 500 in ADP. Like he was a top prospect coming up with the Phillies. Like not even like don't even go back a year. And Spencer Howard was this dude who everyone was sweating. Everyone wanted a piece of him. He came up, bombed, and then now everyone thinks he sucks. But he's going to the Rangers, who've just been like resuscitating careers lately for pitchers. He's got so much of his career ahead of him. Like you go back and look at his minor league numbers, they're elite. Like I don't know what people aren't seeing in Spencer Howard. Like, I mean, is he going to be the number 5? Is he going to start in the minors? Like, who cares? By June, assuming this is the regular start to the year, whatever the equivalent of June is, I think Spencer Howard's going to be owned in like 95% of leagues. I think he's going to be. This is like people are missing out on a stud in Spencer Howard.
I agree and disagree with you. I'll say I agree with the terms of we've already talked about in the show. A lot of the people write players off, especially prospects that struggle early. Sometimes it takes guys a little bit longer. He's certainly going to a much better ballpark to be in. And the Rangers could certainly turn him around. He still struck out 9.42 K per 9, had a walk problem like he has basically for his whole career. Because that's something you're gonna have to deal with. The disagree part is I wouldn't just call him, like when you say favorite late round target, he's a guy that I'll have shares of. He's definitely not a guy I want like multiple like shares of. He won't be one of my top guys just because, there is certainly a floor of nothing here. His floor is not helping you at all. So I do put a little bit of a limit on how much I'd be willing to risk there. But what do you think, Russell, of Spencer Howard? Because yeah, it's a pretty I guess we're not going to talk about Russell because Russell was afraid of the Spencer Howard question, so he wanted nothing to do with it. No, but Russell's back now. We thought you were afraid of Spencer Howard.
I was so excited that I hit the wrong button. I like Spencer Howard a lot, and I have multiple shares. It's sort of like Joe Adell for me at ADP 521. All you're really paying for is some mediocre innings, but he was a prospect with some serious pedigree. And these guys come up and they look like garbage for a couple of years, and it's totally common for these guys to just figure it out all of a sudden. So you're not paying for the upside. You're not paying for him to figure it out. You're just paying for him to eat up innings, and he could outperform his ADP by a few hundred spots.
And I mean, and look at this. I'm going to read everyone K per 9 here. I mean, K percentage is usually a little stronger. So I mean, I could do that too, but K per 9 is a little easier to digest on your brain when I'm reading you these numbers. These are everyone. This is how Spencer Howard has done in the minors: 12.71, 11.82, 15, 11.57, 12.34, 11.5, 13.5, and 11.63. These include the times he was sent back to the minors after struggling in the majors. In the majors so far, it's been 8.51 in 24 innings and then 9.42 in 49 and 2/3. He will figure something out here. I mean, he is even, he was 9.42 even in the majors. The guy strikes out people, and that's Spencer Howard we're talking about. So, it's not crazy when you're talking about a ADP north of 500 of someone that you should definitely consider taking a shot on here because his bread and butter is strikeouts, and he basically failed to do that only one time, and that was in a cup of coffee in 2020. So, I'm definitely someone that is intriguing. And that was Spencer Howard, Nando's favorite late round target for the American League West. Russell, who is your guy?
My actual favorite late round target was Stephen Piscotty, but I talked about him on another pod. So I went with AJ Alexy, totally boring Texas Rangers starter. It's mostly just an innings play. He's probably going to be in the rotation to begin the season. I'm hoping that he sticks and you can play matchups. It's a decent park to pitch in. Nothing special, but you're not paying for him to be special. Even still, if you squint, there's a little something there, maybe. I mean, he had decent strikeout rates in the minors. And I'll go rogue here and point to similar pitchers on Baseball Savant. based on velocity and movement. You've got Christian Javier, Jose Urquidy, Bailey Ober. So maybe it works out. There might be something there.
It's funny you bring up Alexi because, I mean, there's interesting pitchers on this Rangers where everyone points at him for being this horrible pitching team, which, if you had to put money down, sure, they're probably going to be really bad. But this is not my guy that I'm going to say right now, but Taylor Hearn, he was brutal, but he's 27 and he's a lefty. He's another guy where I saw plenty from him from Texas, where, again, lefties take it a long time to figure it out. He's someone else who's interesting to me. So I don't know. I guess there's a path here to the Rangers maybe surprising. I doubt they're all going to bounce back, but I like the Alexi pick. What do you think, Nando? Are you much of a AJ Alexi fan? You're on mute.
I'm on mute. That's an Ian Kahn special. So There you go, Russell. There's your path to hugging it out.
Right.
Yeah, Ian talked about him on our show a couple weeks ago.
Oh, did he?
And got me on him. I don't think there's a Howard or Alexi problem either. I think they can survive both in that rotation.
All right, that was AJ Alexi. That was Russell's favorite late round target for the American League West. And the last guy, my favorite late round target, is Tony Kemp. He's not quite as late as the other players that we've been talking about right now. As an NFBC ADP in February, he's going around 379, so still pretty late. Available at second in outfield. Now, why do I love Tony Kemp? Basically, he's never had he set his career high in at bats last year, plate appearances at 397, 8 home runs and 8 stolen bases, batted 279. It's nothing crazy, but they're going to break this entire thing down. They've been pretty clear about it. They're just letting coaches go for free. They're going to be trading Chapman, Olsen, maybe a couple of pitchers, and someone's going to have to play for them. It's the reason I love Josh Harrison. He's available everywhere. He's probably going to sign back there and bat third. That's how bad they're going to be. Tony Kemp with Machanigar could be leading off for them on a daily basis. You don't know enough about Tony Kemp, kind of look it up. I mean, his in-zone contact, Z contact for Fangraphs, for his entire career is 90.2 for his career. I mean, he's been in here since 2016. He's a contact machine with a swinging strike rate of 5.4%. And he never chases. And he's got a little power and a little speed. So you're telling me around pick 400, you can get the leadoff hitter of a Major League Baseball team who has elite contact skills and has a little power and speed? Yeah, give it to me. Give it all to me. Second in outfield, move him around a little bit. I love it. There's a chance this doesn't work out for him, but the way things are shaping up for the A's, there's a good chance he's batting 1 or 2 almost every day for this squad. I don't foresee them bringing in anything that's going to be a serious threat to his playing time. Elvis Andrus gets injured all the time as well. So even if Andrus is at the top of the lineup, he's actually another decent late round pick anyway. But Tony Kemp. Anyone on board the boring Tony Kemp? Nando, you hate boring players, but what do you think of Tony? What do you think of Tony Kemp? He needs some love.
Never said I hate him. I don't think he's boring. I remember liking Tony Kemp like 4 or 5 years ago and pointing to his minor league numbers and being like, this guy actually hit really well in the minors. Like, I don't know why he's either not getting a full-time job or he's not playing a ton. I'm sure Russell could talk more. Like, he was a Houston Astro. I like him, actually. He's to me, he's not boring. I think he's a guy who's been a part-time player really for most of his career, who is now maybe starting and maybe getting a ton of at-bats. So, I think he maybe kind of started a little bit a couple of years ago, but he wasn't like the starter. He had to kind of battle his way for it. And I forget who it was. He edged out some guy I really liked. And I maybe hate Tony Kemp for like half a season. But who was it? It wasn't getting, it was like, maybe it was he was with the A's, like Jorge Mateo wasn't getting the at-bats that he was supposed to have, or who was that dude who had Tommy John, the shortstop prospect, whose name is... Anyway, point is, I like him. I actually can get in on Tony Kemp. He's got a little soft place in my heart.
What do you think, Russell? And by the way, I was going to try to play that clip at the end, but it's in the Google Drive that it's not giving me permission if you want to try to send that to me again, Russell. But what are your thoughts on Tony Kemp?
I could play it here if you want, if we're going to do it. I like Tony Kemp too. Elite contact, elite plate discipline. He's going to have an everyday role. At that pick, you just can't really go wrong with someone who's going to get those at bats.
All right, well, that's Tony Kemp. That is the last pick we have on the show of our American League undervalued players and our favorite late round targets in the American League West. So for the
Sorry,
the
was
clip
it Franklin Barreto? Was that it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Franklin Barreto.
Yeah, man. All right, thank you. Sorry.
It was funny. I was actually searching for it on the side here because I was driving me insane. like trying to talk and research at the same time. So Russell, do you want to cue up the random clip?
Sure. Let's see.
I don't know if you'll be able to play it on your side. Awkward silence.
You can edit this out, right? There's no
Okay,
problem.
so I don't know. DVR, we good at time?
You
All
hear it?
right.
We can get one more in.
You want to get a question in?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we owe it to the people.
You should read this one.
Really? Let me
All right,
read
let's
it.
see.
Let me
You
read it. Let me read it because I'm going to take a shot at the guy who wrote it. Russell
Well, no,
Withers.
maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should.
No, I'm gonna.
Like, let me read this so I can mock the guy.
No, let me do it. So,
go ahead.
gentlemen, my sniffle, hashtag sniffle. My question relates to dynasties. I'm curious to know what your ideal dynasty league setup looks like in terms of the details you don't usually talk about. How many teams, how deep are the rosters, how many minor league slots, what kind of scoring, what service, CBS fan tracks. Use some of the leagues you talk about often as examples. That's quite, like this is what you need to do. Thanks. Big fan of the show, even if it's only my second favorite athletic fantasy baseball podcast, which I guess is charming. And then
I like that.
And
I
then
didn't even read the second half.
Oh, this is not good. In fact, I've been a fan of Nando since his days at CBS. Didn't care for him for the longest time. Screw you,
No,
Russell.
there's a lot of people were like that.
Whatever. Russell can go eat it. But one day I was listening to the pod while driving home, and Nando, and then I like this part. Nando cracked some joke to Adam Azer about trying to inflate a basketball using nothing but your mouth. I laughed so hard I had to pull over. Yes, I was lucky enough to end up in a draft champs league with DVR. Looking forward to mopping the floor with him. I got issues with
I love
Russell
this
Withers.
guy, man. I
Nah,
love
this is not.
Oh, it's a dynasty question. You should love
No,
this.
it's fine. Come on. This is honest. This is cool. Like I appreciate the fact that he owned up to not liking Nando at first when he first heard him, but he likes him now.
Oh, good for now we can all sleep better because Russell Withers likes Nando now. Oh, cool. Go duck yourself.
They're
I don't
harsh.
believe that actually, Russell.
Russell sent that to me. I'm like,
I-
I don't want to bombard anyone with audio. And then I'm thinking like, all right, this is just funny. We'll play it.
I was like, this email is so funny, and Khan's reaction to it was so jarring. It's like, oh my god. So anyway, I made
Do you remember that,
email.
Nando, by the way, after playing it?
I do. I remember that now. Yeah, I do.
I had the best intentions, and that was coming from a good place.
I think two of the
I
three
also-
of us understood.
I also won that league I was in with DVR.
Nice.
You know what's funny is Russell, like after you were both on here, I had no idea about this. Russell like DMs me, hey, play this clip. I once sent in this thing and they like ripped me apart. I'm like, oh my God, if Nando remembers this, he's gonna think this is some kind of setup. Like we're gonna railroad you with this audio clip.
man.
That was before I heard it, obviously. Obviously it wasn't too bad, but
Yeah. No, that was awesome. That was funny. That's great. Ian Khan.
so everybody, thank you for listening to the Turn 2 podcast. That finally ends our series on going division by division, doing over and undervalued players. Next week, I'm actually going to dedicate an entire episode to talking about opportunity cost. We've mentioned it almost every episode for the last like 6. So it's something we're just going to kind of go into and discuss players that like, even though you like their value, like Jose Abreu, and they're fair where they're going, where maybe it'd be better possibly picking another position. And there's some available options later. So it's not a matter of a fantasy analyst or whatever you want to call them doesn't like a player doesn't mean they hate them. It just means like maybe they don't like the value or again, more importantly, opportunity cost. And that's something we'll be talking about. But thank you to Nando and Russell. Nando, if you could, not that you really need to explain to everyone, but if you can remind them where they can find where you're doing all your work right now, leading into the baseball season, is hopefully the lockout will end.
Yeah.
As I think the headline this morning was, there's no scheduled meeting and they don't really know when they're going to meet. So, fingers crossed on whatever the hell is happening. But where can everyone find your current whereabouts as far as baseball content goes?
Yeah, just come to the Athletic. I'm not even writing as much anymore. I'm just more behind the scenes, but it's good stuff. And I think March 1st or February 28th, we're going to mini launch the draft kit just to get some stuff out there. So should be fun. Get excited. Hooray.
All right. And Russell, I can remind them where everyone can find you on Twitter for everyone now watching the live video and can actually see your Twitter handle on the screen, and let them know where they can find your website and all that good stuff.
Sure. The premier bottom tier fantasy baseball website is armchairroto.com. And you find me on Twitter at armchairroto. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for making the time.
Good
And
to
you
meet
can
you,
follow.
Nando.
Hey, too, Russell. Officially.
Yeah, officially.
Sorry about Ian.
Everyone, you can follow me over at the NBC Sports Edge. Every Tuesday, I have my By the Numbers article. Everyone DMs me, why, I was nominated for an FSWA award, and they never actually tell you, the audience, what it's for. It's by the numbers article. So, I mean, go check it out. It's like my pinned tweet right now, and I had a bunch last year. So if you're interested, go check that out. Turn 2 podcast right here. Make sure you subscribe. 5 stars would greatly appreciate it over a Roto Fanatic. And I do obviously some work over The Athletic. So join me at Twitter, MATTWI77IMS. DMs are always open. If you want to talk about baseball, I'm always happy to. If you don't want to post a public question, you want to know something about advanced analytics I mentioned on the show, DM me. I'm happy to talk baseball. I'm happy to explain them to you. So thank you for listening to the show. We'll be back next week. See everybody.